If you've ever loved a dog, you've probably asked yourself this question at some point. How will I know it's time? It's the question we never want to face, and yet it's one of the most important decisions we will ever make for the animals who have given us absolutely everything. Today's episode is about love, but also about letting go. It's about choosing peace over pain, dignity over suffering, and what it really means to give our dogs the most selfless gift we can offer, a gentle goodbye. It's a hard topic to talk about, but one we're going to face head on today's episode of A Dog's Devotion. Welcome to A Dog's Devotion, where we share the powerful, life-changing bond between dogs and the people who love them. Can you please subscribe to our podcast? I sure would appreciate it. I'm Carla Basaki. I am the host of A Dog's Devotion. This podcast is dedicated to my beautiful rescue dog, Max, who not only changed my life, but saved it. But today we're talking about one of the hardest parts of loving a dog, and something that all dog owners are going to have to go through at one time, and that's saying goodbye. I'm joined by Dr. Becky Frank from Lap of Love Veterinary Hospice. This is a service that helps families say goodbye to their pets in the comfort of their own home, surrounded by love, familiarity, and of course, peace. Because when the time comes, and it always does, how we say goodbye really matters. So, Dr. Becky, can I call you Dr. Becky?
Oh, yeah. If you call me Dr. Frank, I'll think that I'm still at my last job, which was like 10 years ago, teaching students at Navajo Technical University.
Okay, so Dr. Becky, it is. Thanks for joining me to talk about this pretty touchy subject. And like we just said, anyone who gets a dog or a pet, at one point, they're going to have to go through this. This really is a question every pet owner struggles with. How do we know when it's time to put our pet down? And I hate using that word down. I don't know what the correct word is or a nicer word to say it, but they're suffering. Do we keep them alive for as long as we can, or do we end their life peacefully?
It's such a loaded question. I actually had a lady at one of my appointments yesterday who was there supporting her son, whose dog I was helping, ask me about her dog. And I was like, I will tell you afterwards. Like, we're going to focus on his dog for now. And we just walked out to my car, and I actually handed her a little pamphlet of how do I know that it's time? Because this is the biggest question when we have, dogs that we love in our life. And it's very nuanced. So the first thing I will say is that it depends on the dog and the disease process. So there are sometimes, like I was talking with this lady yesterday, there's very long, slow declines, which also make it hard to pick a day. Or sometimes you have like a sudden drastic diagnosis of, oh my gosh, my dog has a heart-based tumor. I don't know what to do now. What does that mean for me? Or my dog is diagnosed with kidney failure. Or if you're my parents, they're dealing with their 9-year-old dog who has congestive heart failure and just blew both his ACLs. How do they come to terms and decide, okay, is my dog suffering? When is the correct time to say goodbye? And so what we talk about a lot is the 4 budgets as well as quality of life. So I'll touch very briefly on the 4 budgets. The first is the emotional budget, your capacity to watch what your dog is going through, and also your dog's emotional capacity to handle that. For example, my dog, who's actually sitting next to me, you can't see her, she'll be turning 13 this year. I know what her dignity, what she would want, as opposed to my other dog, who you actually can see behind me,
Yeah.
what she would want emotionally. And then where I'm okay emotionally in saying goodbye, like what I'm capable of watching. The second is physical. The one dog sitting on the couch next to me is 70 pounds. That is a big dog if she starts to have mobility issues. Your Danes, your St. Bernards,
Yeah.
or if you physically cannot pick up your dog and physically take care of them, that's a big deal too. The third is obviously financial. How much money can you expend to keep them comfortable? And finally, time. And my own philosophy on time is that it's twofold. You either, you look at the time that the disease process is taking, and then also the time you actually have in your day to take care of them. Oftentimes, if you have like a long, slow decline, or let's say your dog has dementia, sometimes you don't have the type of career that you can be home all the time to get them unstuck out of a corner,
Right.
or getting up in the multiple times in the middle of the night to take them out and those sorts of things. So we look at those 4 budgets, and then we look at overall quality of life. There are a lot of good quality of life measurements that you can find online. I know there is at least one on Lap of Love. And so if you're sitting there going, I don't know what kind of quality my dog has right now, you can always just log on, and it's kind of nice. I always suggest doing them with another person, because sometimes their perspective is a little different, and
Mhm.
what they're seeing is maybe not what you're seeing. And it gives you a nice, like, numerical, like, you can see number wise of, okay, this is where my dog is at. I'm comfortable moving forward with X, Y, or Z. So
Are there specific signs of pain or suffering that people often miss with their dog? And then is that why you say bring in somebody else and have them maybe look at your dog? Because we kid ourselves, right? You don't want to actually believe that your dog is hurting or there's something wrong. So maybe getting somebody else to tell you, yes, this is the right
yeah,
time.
definitely that, especially because sometimes you're so close, you see your dog all the time.
Yeah.
Um, and unless you're trained to, like, look at them all the time, sometimes the decline might be so slow that it's so slow and it's so gradual that you're not seeing it. Whereas, let's say your spouse or your daughter, or a parent hasn't seen that pet in a while, they'll come and be like, "Wow, he's a lot worse than before." So sometimes that's what we mean by perspective. But the other thing that I generally find, and some people pick up on this right away, but generally I find, a lot of people think that if their dog is not vocalizing pain, that they're not painful. Like, if he's
Right.
not crying, like, he's not painful. I've had people, and this is not a judgment or anything. It's just I've had people be like, I will watch this dog who's like, can't get up, cannot move, or is limping on a leg, and they're like, well, he doesn't seem painful, and it's just because they're simply not vocalizing that pain. I always joke with my husky owners that they are the only ones who typically vocalize pain for me, especially chronic pain. If you think, if you have arthritis, are you going to cry about it all the time? Not really.
No.
So, what your dog will usually do is they will sit there and they'll pant. Panting is a classic sign of pain, especially if they're in, like, a normal, cool environment. It's not excessively warm, and they should be comfortable, but they're not. They're sitting there panting. That's discomfort,
It
is
is.
pain, and it potentially is also anxiety. Dogs don't live in the future. They don't sit there and go, "Well, I can take 2 aspirin and lay down." They just know that, "Hey, you know what? I'm painful. This hurts. I don't know quite what to do about it, so I'm gonna lay here and I'm just gonna pant to kind of self-soothe." And the other thing that people miss that they will often do, often because it's also a sign of allergies, is limb licking. I will sometimes go in, especially arthritic dogs, you'll almost see, like, the whole forearm is kind of like that reddish from them licking all
Right.
the time, and that comes from they're painful, and it's that self-soothing sort of, "I don't know what to do with myself, so I'm just gonna kind of lick here until, I feel a little bit better." Those are the 2 that I usually find that people miss the most often. That helps people catch it. Great.
That's interesting because of the panting. I'm thinking of my dog who, and I think it's anxiety because when we travel on a plane, we just flew. I had Smokies, a 7-pound Yorkie, and we flew from Miami to Mexico City. And of course, he's in the cabin with us in his little bag. But when we get on a plane and while we're taking off and until the plane settles, he's panting like crazy. And Max used to do the same thing. And I always thought, is it the pressure? Like, are they in pain or are they it's just all new to them and they're just full of anxiety?
So that's what I would chalk it up to. I mean, the fluffy dog behind me, she has flown on an airplane with me. I picked
Yeah.
her up from a really good breeder in New Mexico, and flying back, of course, like, I had her, she was in the cabin with me, and she panted till about, we were up in the air and take off, and then she was like, "Oh, this is fine. I'm gonna take a nap now."
Right.
And so,
Okay.
yeah, it's that new environment. Like, I don't know quite what to do in this circumstance, so I'm just gonna kind of pant about it to kind of self-soothe, and then, obviously they got up to whatever 10,000 feet, and then they're like, "Yeah, this is fine. Okay, I'm gonna
Yeah,
take it."
then they just go to sleep, which is
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
Uh, you have a really hard do you have a hard job, or do you think that you're helping people and so it's a good job?
Yeah, no, I get this question all the time because, I'm helping families 5 days a week, sometimes 6 if I pick up an extra appointment. And I look at it twofold. So my journey here, like I mentioned in the beginning, like I used to be a professor at the Navajo Technical University in New Mexico, and I loved, loved, loved doing that. I loved teaching my students. But when I went through school, I actually tracked for large animal. I was determined to be a cow vet because
Mhm.
I do love cows. But I love dogs and cats too, and I ended up kind of doing mixed animal practice while also being a professor. But my parents are aging, and my boss wasn't super great, so I ended up quitting that job. And I was like, okay, there are 3 things I'm willing to go do. I did not want to go to the same office every day and do GP practice. That just was not the way I was built. I wanted to be on the road. I did not want to go to the same place every day. So I was like, I'm okay still teaching. I'd be okay doing USDA work because I'd still be using a lot of my epidemiology and large animal knowledge. And the third was in home euthanasia, simply because I was like, this is something that I knew I was good at. Like, if I didn't get into vet school, I either wanted to go be a neurologist or go into mortuary school.
Oh my
And
goodness.
I
Okay.
know that those were my choices. And I joke with clients, but also I do believe God made us all for a different purpose. He designed me for this one. I am absolutely 100% okay sitting with people crying all day. Like that, I'm just built that way. And those of us who do this work, we're okay with that because people will actually apologize. They're like, "We're so sorry, we're crying at you." I'm like, no, you love your dog, your cat,
Yeah.
your iguana. Like, you're allowed to cry about this. And I'm very comfortable sitting with people through that. Or as I sometimes joke, and I say it very lovingly because both my mother's a retired teacher and my brother is still a fantastic math teacher up in Buffalo. He knew I was not going to make a good primary school teacher. So God knew to just track me this way. And so I've been doing this. I just had my 9-year anniversary with Laugh Applaud.
Wow.
So
How do you so it's great that you're good with it because I think not everybody would be. I mean, I'm certainly not made for this. I mean, it would just break my heart. So I congratulate you. That sort of sounds weird for me to say that, but we do need people like you out there to be doing this work. And so I think that's important. I know quite a few people, friends of mine, who have put their dogs down, but decided to do it at home because they want the dog to be in a comfortable environment on the bed with the family around with their blanket. And so what you do is really important because we do need it. But how do you help families who feel unsure or afraid at the last minute? Like, do you have people who at the last minute go, "Oh my gosh, am I doing the right thing? Dr. Becky, should I be doing this?" They're afraid. Am I making this decision too soon? How do you cope with that?
I will firstly say I'm very, very comfortable helping those families. And the vast, vast, vast majority of veterinarians are. Because we're trained, especially, these are very new clients for me. I've never met most of these people before, except for the ones that are repeat clients and are calling me back. Like, we have to build trust very, very quickly. But I tend to say that my last name really fits me because I tend to be extremely honest. I don't know if Hope told you, I'm also the chair of the ethics committee at work. So
No.
if there is an appointment that I'm walking into where I'm like, we're not at euthanasia yet, I simply tell them no, and I'm very comfortable. I offer them other, things that we can do, but if I'm not comfortable with it, I'm very comfortable telling people no, because I have to sleep at night. Because in the
Right.
end, it is my hand that is pushing that euthanasia solution. It is my hand that is euthanizing them. We make that decision together with the family, but it's my hand doing the work. So I got to sleep with that. So first and foremost, I let families know that if I didn't think that euthanasia should be on the table while I'm there, I'm going to tell them. I'm going to be honest. Number two is The lovely part about doing not just in-home euthanasia, but also hospice is that I can lean back and be like, "You know what? Um, I will often put it in their court of being like, "Well, what are you nervous about? Like, what is driving you to be unsure about this decision?" And then they'll usually pour out and be like, "Well, he had a good day yesterday, or he's having a good day today, but yesterday was so
Right.
bad, and I don't want to put him through another night where I'm up 10,000 times and he's looking at me like he needs help." And I'm like, "That's okay." And if I feel like hospice might be helpful or appropriate, we can switch over to a hospice appointment. I got no problem with that. But for the most a lot so many people are so worried that they are doing it too soon.
Yeah.
And in the end, I usually end up seeing the opposite, where they wait too long. Not those specific people, but I usually see pets, like, at the longer end of things. And generally, if I have, like, a repeat client or something, they will typically say goodbye sooner, like, a little bit more, because they know the suffering that will happen down the road. So they're
Got
like,
it.
"Oh, I know that this is coming. I put my last dog through that. I don't want to do that again. So we're going to say goodbye a little bit sooner."
Right.
But if this is your first time going through it, like, and you're worried, like, am I too soon? Should I have tried the guilt of being like, oh, I should have done X, Y, and Z, and why don't I have $1 million to put through the
Yeah.
it's okay. That's what we're here for. We're going to come in. We're going to give you our honest opinion, and 99.9% of the time we're going to sit there and affirm the decision that we are making together.
Right. I think that guilt is one of the worst and the most common feelings, whether you decide to use your services and euthanize your dog at home or the dog suddenly dies. No matter what, the owner is going to have guilt. What could I have done? What didn't I notice? Maybe I should have done this. Maybe I should have spent that extra money on this. So that is one of the worst feelings I found that dog and cat owners go through. How do you, so how and you know that how you see it firsthand. How do you help families navigate that guilt?
Well, I can always, depending on if I'm in an appointment with them, I can very easily put my vet hat on and being like, I can walk them through that disease process. One of the families I'm thinking of was actually, I just helped them again last night with their second pet. But their first one was a dog with a heart-based tumor. And the thing with heart-based tumors is that, especially hemangiosarcoma, those can start to bleed rapidly. And if you have a fast bleed, that dog is gone in a matter of seconds to minutes, and it can be very traumatizing for you to watch. It's a relatively quick death for the pet, but again, you might see them seizure and do like panting and be unable to breathe, and that's scary. So I will generally walk back families back to that emotional budget of, okay, this is what this disease process looks like. Where are we most comfortable saying goodbye? And still remember that family. Like, I really was holding their hand through that because, dog was having a good day. It wasn't eating great, but it was having a good day. They took it for a last walk and everything. And they were like, we don't want that death to happen. And in that capacity, that makes sense. Sometimes euthanasia isn't so much about relieving suffering, it's from preventing that bad death. Because euthanasia is actually a Greek word. It means good and right death. This family
I
took
didn't
care
know
of
that. Euthanasia is a Greek word that means what does it mean again?
good and right death.
Good and right death.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So this family was like, we have given this dog, like, this dog has shared thousands of good days with this family. And I let them know, I was like, we are going to make sure that her death is just as good as the rest of her life with you. And with euthanasia, we have the choice to do that. So that's usually how I help families kind of reframe that guilt that they're feeling when I'm in an appointment. Now, after the fact, I actually run a pet loss support group at my church, and I people will come and they'll be like, I had one lady who came a year after she had lost her dog, and she's like, I just have terrible guilt. And we talk about grieving and how to grieve. And through about 6 sessions, I do one each month and help them work through that guilt and that grief and how to carry
Mm.
it.
That brings up an interesting point. Is it important for people to find like-minded people, like a group, a support group that you have where they can commiserate together and talk about their pets? Does that help them heal themselves?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Most studies will show that when people don't feel supported in grief, they feel very isolated because grief itself is an isolating event anyway. You've gone through this terribly traumatic thing. You are all ripped up inside you. You're very sad, and it's like having a bubble around you because the rest of life is going on. There are other people out there that are just going about their normal days, and you are not. So when you're out with them, you feel very separated. And having at least one person in your life, whether it's a support group or a spouse or and my parents, they have
Right.
me, having that support is really crucial to helping you work through that grief. So something I will often tell my support group is find your tribe, find your people who are going to help you through this. One really good example would be actually myself. I lost my 7-year-old dog very suddenly to catastrophic heart failure in 2021, about 3 months after I euthanized my own cat. And it was amazing because my counselor at the time was just like, "I don't know if your job is helping you or hindering you." And I was like, "No, I think it's helping me because I'm sitting with other people who are going through the exact same thing as I am right now. And we can kind of hurt together. And I understand that sort of isolating traumatic event of saying goodbye to an amazing dog.
Right.
And we kind of help each other through it."
Yeah. I think support from other people, friends, support groups really helps because otherwise I know with me, you can go down the rabbit hole. If you're by yourself and you're used to just having it you and your dog, it's hard to get up in the morning because you don't think you have a reason to. The dog was the one that got you up because he wanted to go for a walk. And then you had to feed him and you had responsibility. And when you don't have that and you're by yourself, it can be very scary.
It is, and I say this as somebody I don't have a spouse, I don't have kids, so when I had lost my dog, followed quickly by my cat, alls I had was actually like and I had a best friend who was pregnant at the time and busy with that,
Right.
but als and I had my parents who live in a different state. It was really both my assistant pastor and my current rescue dog, like, who got me through it. Because I would wake up I had terrible insomnia with my grief, and I would
Yeah.
wake up at, like, midnight and be like, "I can't sleep. I can't stay in this bed. I can't even stay in this house." And so I would go downstairs and I would get the leash. It was summertime, and me and Twister would go walking around the neighborhood, and I'd be like, "Oh, there's probably so many, like, Ring cameras that are catching this." Like, it's not like I'm doing anything, I'm just walking with my dog around, my neighborhood. So it's even if that support comes from another dog, it's still support,
At
it's
least it's
still
support.
helpful. It's
I
still somebody
agree.
there for you.
Can you walk us through what happens during an in-home euthanasia visit?
Yeah, so I can walk you through, especially with Lap of Love, because I've been doing
Yeah.
this for, again, 9 years. So you start with making that phone call, which we understand is one of the hardest things to do. That's why, like, we also have a chat function on our website because otherwise picking up that phone is tough. Like, I'm a millennial, I hate calling people as it is.
Right.
So doing the chat function and asking or filling in one of the forms and then we'll reach out to you, helpful. You schedule it, whether you're looking for same day. I mean, we suggest the more lead time you give us, the better we're able to accommodate you. You schedule for a day and a time. And then on my end, I get some of the notes that one of the very, very caring vet coordinators will send me. They're wonderful. Like if you ever call them, they're so sweet on the phone. I've actually had to call them to euthanize like my own dog. I had one of the other doctors do it in 2023. And I was like, she's just so sweet. She's
Mhm.
super helpful. We train them a lot. So you have that caring voice on the phone, and then you kind of prepare, which we could talk more about that later. We'll send you an email with thoughtful preparation, and then I call you about when I'm on my way. Usually it's like 20 to 30 minutes out, just depending on where I'm coming from. And when I arrive, I usually like to try to go to your front door unless you have specific directions. We will never ring your doorbell. We will always knock, simply because we generally find that ringing doorbells makes dogs bark and makes them anxious.
Right.
So we're
Right.
trained not even to ring a doorbell. If you don't answer the knock, I'll just call you again. And then when we come in, some of the doctors have their consent forms are digital. I am one of those people who still likes paper. So what
Yeah.
I'll generally say after we introduce each other, and I say hi to your dog, obviously, because that's what I'm there to see. I'll say, let's go ahead and get rid of paperwork so we can focus on Fluffy for the rest of the time. And we do that real quick. I make sure everything is, if I'm taking them for cremation or if you're doing that, you have everything you need. Great. Paper sign. And then I walk you through the process in which I'm going to give 2 medications. The first is some sedation and painkiller, and that's going to help them relax and fall asleep. We get them to basically a general plane of anesthesia with our meds. Um, and I'll give that. It just goes just like a vaccine, just sub-Q. And once I'll usually have the family kind of pat and hold them. Hey, if you want to feed them, if they're still eating and you want to
Yeah.
feed them chocolate, now is the time.
Right.
I had one family just the other week who had full size Reese's cups for their Labrador, and I was like, good, that's the perfect thing. I will feed my rescue dog probably an entire loaf of bread because that's her favorite. When the time
Uh-huh.
comes, I kind of have planned out. But once that sedation's on board, if a family wants to talk, that's fine. I'm also one of those people where I can usually tell, do they just want to be there with their dog or are they nervous, chattery people? I'm happy to talk if you want to talk, but if you want me to shut up so you can just be with your dog, that's fine too. So I will sit there, I'll kind of set up my little stuff so you can just be with your dog as they fall asleep. And then once they're asleep, you'll see me double check. I'll usually touch their feet to make sure they're asleep. And then I administer that second medication, which very gently turns everything off. At that point, I will make a paw print if you'd like a lock of fur. And then we have a booklet that we give you about grief and whatnot. And then if I'm taking them for cremation, I will often step out at that time and give you some time alone with your
Right.
dog, your cat, whatever I'm there for. And then I'll come back in with either a basket or I have a stretcher with a blanket and flowers and a pillow. And then I will arrange them on there for you. And then I always offer families first if they'd like to carry their pet to my car. I think that's important for some people. They feel like pallbearers.
Yeah.
And so I'm happy to let them do that. But if you're there and you're burying, then I'll just very quietly excuse myself. I'll be like, listen, I'm going to get out of your hair and I'll make sure that you kind of generally are comfortable with doing a burial afterwards and just reassuring where I live in Pennsylvania, the state says you got 72 hours to bury. Take your time. This is what happens after death. And I just kind of prepare people gently. And that's really it. Then I drive off and we will send usually a follow-up email the following day, and that has pet loss resources and I even though I'm a millennial, I still handwrite every single one of my cards to go to families afterwards. So that's
Right.
that's the general process. That's what I do for each appointment during the day.
Mhm.
That's a euthanasia.
It sounds much more peaceful, I think, than going to the vet and having it done there. Is it not? I mean, is this the preferred method?
I I'm very careful not to throw my fellow GP vets under the bus because they're they're doing the best they can with what they have. A lot of
Right.
times they are seeing 20 to 30 patients a day. They are working super hard. Some of them actually have comfort rooms. And you know what? If your dog loves going to the vet and you want to say goodbye there, that's fine. I generally find most dogs are more comfortable in their own home. A lot of
Mhm.
older dogs don't love taking that drive. And then, we have a little bit more time generally. I'm kind of spoiled where I am. Again, I have a lot of like elderly Amish people who just kind of want me in and out. In and out, but if you need that extra time with your pet, that's fine. Your GP vet only has like so much time in their day to devote to it, whereas I'm only seeing a maximum of 6 patients a day. And that's if I'm real busy,
Wow.
because it takes me time to drive in places,
Right.
but we have a little bit more time. So sometimes it's a little bit more relaxed than
Yeah.
also being at your vet, which I think helps. And you know your dog best. So you know which dog like is going to be comfortable being at home.
Now, what about if the family has other pets in the house? Say there's 2 dogs in the house and
Oh
one
yeah.
you're coming to see. Should the other dog be there, or do you think that they should not be in the same room?
I think it depends on the dog and the families. What I've done for my own pets in a controlled environment, both my dogs love people. They're going to bark when you come in. But when I was saying goodbye to my third dog in 2023 and my colleague came, I gave both my dogs Kongs filled with peanut butter. And then me and my colleague went to my office upstairs where we wouldn't be disturbed because I just wanted to focus on that dog. So what I generally tell people is if you feel like having the other dog here is not going to detract from you focusing on the dog I'm there to see, that's totally fine. Like as long as they're not using me as a chew toy, we're good.
Right,
You could totally
right,
have them there, but if you feel like, they're kind of an attention hog and they're going to be disruptive to you being able to focus on them, then you know what? You can let them see the body afterwards, and that's fine.
right.
That's what I
Are
ended up
there
doing with my own.
Yeah, it's so hard, so hard. Can families is there what can families do to prepare for this moment in a way that feels loving rather than clinical?
My favorite thing is bucket lists. Now that my dog is like showing her face, I can
I
tell you
know,
that
it's weird, but cute.
I've been like doing a low key bucket list with her for the past years. Like I mentioned earlier, she will be 13 in July. This is a dog who I would argue, like Max with you, like shares a very special bond. I have run marathons with this dog. She helped me
Well,
train for my last K. And so and I remember finishing that 50K and sitting down and just starting to cry. And my colleague was there and the race director came over and was like, "Oh my God, are you okay?" And I was like,
yeah.
"Yeah, but now I have to retire my dog." But that was kind of one of my bucket lists was to have her help me train for one last ultra marathon. Now, I won't push her beyond 4 miles anymore. Like she's almost 13. She cannot do
Yeah,
that
I'll
anymore.
Dr. Becky, I get it. My dog Max was my inspiration for running, and that dog ran with me every single day in the woods. We had our path. He was off leash because he just run beside me. And then as arthritis really started to hinder his movements, I didn't run with him anymore. I knew that, maybe just walking down to the water and sitting by the water with him for a while was better than making him run 10 kilometers, because you see that.
Yeah.
For someone who's listening right now who has a senior or a sick dog, what can they do today to ensure their dog's comfort and quality of life before this actually happens?
My general rule of thumb, if it helps at all, is talk to your veterinarian. If you're worried about their quality of life, go see your vet about it or take one of our little quality of life quizzes and calendars. That can be certainly helpful. I'm a big believer in knowledge is power. So education, education, education. The more that you know from good sources of how to best keep your dog comfortable as they age, that's the best thing you can do is to be aware. It's especially if you have like a specific breed and knowing what kind of to look for with different diseases, like my little puff ball back here. That's a purebred former show champion Pomeranian, like whose son was number 3 in the country for a year.
Wow.
Like, but I also know multiple generations back, like how long did her sire and her dame live? And generally, what am I looking for in a Pomeranian? What is she gonna die of? Probably congestive heart failure or kidney failure. Or my last Pomeranian she had such terrible teeth plus a heart murmur. I couldn't put her under to clean her teeth and she ended up with a terrible infection. Like just even being aware of what diseases you're more likely to see in your dog or if they're, a mutt, take your best guess.
Yeah.
That will certainly help. And just just being able to look, like we mentioned earlier, for those little signs of pain. And even then, just having a plan. So many people, it's very taboo to talk about death in Western culture.
Yes, I
It is
agree.
extremely hard to bring up and talk to people about it. But really, just like us, where we have, do not resuscitate and we have a will, have a little will for your dog. Know what they would tolerate and what you are also willing to go through at the end of that life. Good example would be my cat was diagnosed completely incidental on exam. I make other people look at my pets because I don't like doing that.
Right.
He was diagnosed completely incidental on exam with an abdominal tumor. He had no symptoms. He was still eating, drinking, urinating, defecating normally, acting normally. He was 14 years old, otherwise extremely healthy. His blood work was perfect. But my colleague found the mass and called me in. It was like the middle of COVID. And I already knew with him because I had a plan. I was like, okay, this is cancer, and our plan is to do hospice because he was at that point in his life where he just didn't like being in the car that much anymore. And I was not going to put him through. And while we were there, we ultrasounded it and I looked at it, I was like, that's fairly inoperable. I wasn't going to put him through that because I knew in my heart of hearts that he wouldn't understand that and he wouldn't enjoy that, and
Mhm.
it would be very, very hard on him to make a lot of those drives for surgery or
Right.
chemo. So I put what he needed first and said, "Okay, this is our plan. This is what we're gonna do." And as I was sobbing driving home, I promised him I'd never put him in the car again because that was our plan, and I stuck to it. I never put him in the car again until it was to drive him to the crematory after I euthanized him.
Right. So sad.
I know, like, this is such people think that I must have, like, the saddest I must be sad all the time. Even my senior pastor at my church is like, "Are you okay? You do sad stuff all the time." And I'm like, "No, I'm built for this, like, I can handle this. This is where I get fulfillment in my life, is helping people through these really
Eh,
dark parts." And as I often tell families, your dog doesn't wake up in the morning going, "Oh, well, I have cancer," or, "Oh, I have congestive heart failure. I've gotta take
Right.
it easy." They don't know what they have. They just know how they feel. So if they're feeling crummy and gross, now, if, age also matters too. If my cat had been diagnosed at like 2 years old, I probably would have pursued because I knew he would have that much longer. Whereas at 14, I was worried he'd probably die on the table.
Right.
So
Yeah.
knowing and weighing that as well is also important in your budgets and what you're willing. Age isn't a disease, but it does come with friends. So
Yeah.
unfortunately,
Friends
you
we
got
don't like. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. As we wrap this up, what final piece of advice would you give to someone who's feeling completely lost after losing their dog?
My first one is always to see to your physical needs first because oftentimes, especially immediately after losing your pet, whether they died suddenly or they died slow or what have you, whether it was euthanasia or an unassisted passing, physically, we feel grief the most in that first week or two. Like I mentioned earlier, I had terrible insomnia after my grief. People forget to eat, people forget to drink. I had a lady at one of who I knew who had forgotten to drink and she actually passed out after, a couple days afterwards because she was forgetting to do that because
Yeah.
it's such a consuming thing. So firstly, see to your physical needs. Even if you're just drinking soda pop, I don't care. It's hydration. Works. Second, finding that support to help you through that is probably one of the most helpful things that you can do for yourself. And having that plan in place of, "Okay, when this happens, I'm going to reach out to my friend or my mom." Sorry, she was snoring. Or
I
whoever.
can see her right behind your shoulder. She's getting up now. She's very cute.
She's just like, "You touched me, mom." God. But yeah, doing those sorts of things and finding that support is gonna help you. When we talk about, like, different grief theories, because I also have a certification in thanatology, which is the study of death, dying, and bereavement. One of the ones I really like is grieving what's naturally for you. Some people really need to talk about it, and they need to openly express stuff. Some people really don't. Doing it in what is comfortable for you is often the best thing. And also we talk about, maintaining that bond after death. Death is not the end of that bond. You still love Max. I still love Severus and Little Red and Gypsy. Like, I still love those. I still have a bond with them. It's just that bond is irrevocably changed. Adjusting to that, usually with like either a memorial keepsake, or I have a little I have my pets went through a private cremation, and I chose an urn with a picture, and I have a little shadow box with their paw print. I've seen beautiful ways that people will memorialize their pet, from, sun catchers to tattoos, finding a way to continue that bond while also dealing with the fact that it's changed is going to help you in the long run.
Right. Well, Dr. Becky, thanks so much for joining me to talk about this. It's an important subject. And like you said, we don't talk about death, and pet death and pet loss and pet grief is real. And I've gone through it, you've gone through it, and I'll go through it again, and so will you. You gave us helpful hints so that if it is the right time to do it, maybe don't second guess yourself, get a second opinion, and then do what's right for your pet. Not being selfish and keeping the pet around for yourself is the right way to go.
Yeah, it's like I said, as people go through these things more and more, they'll usually say goodbye just a little bit earlier, just to make sure
Yeah.
that their pet doesn't experience any discomfort or suffering at the end. And that's the way we want them to go. We want them to have, like I said, just as good of a death as they do the rest of their lives with us.
Okay, well, there's certainly no easy way to say goodbye to a dog who has loved you so completely for so long. You and I both know that's so difficult. But there is a way to do it, like you say, with compassion and dignity and with a sense of peace. And maybe that final act of devotion we can give them is to have someone like yourself come to the house, be brave enough as a dog owner, and know that your dog is in pain. And you don't want them to have to go through that pain. So thank you to you, Dr. Becky Frank from Lap of Love Veterinary Hospice, for helping us guide us through one of the most difficult but important conversations we can have as pet owners. And to anyone listening who may be facing this decision right now, no, you're not alone. And Lap of Love is a great resource where they've got great websites. There's lots of information on there. So to end this off, I just want to say, love your dog every minute of every day, because you'll never have enough time with your dog, ever. Thank you, Dr. Becky. I appreciate your insight on this. It was very helpful.
You are very welcome. It was wonderful talking with you, Carla.
Okay. Dr. Becky, you have a good day.
You too. Bye.
Thanks.
And that's a wrap on another unforgettable story from the heart, because when it comes to love, loyalty, and second chances, no one does it better than our dogs. They find us when we're lost, lift us when we're low, and teach us what true devotion really looks like. Thanks for listening, and remember, in this wild world, we're all just trying to find our way home. Sometimes it takes 4 paws to lead us there. So give your pup an extra cuddle today and cherish your time with him. Give him some extra treats too. I know he'll love them. This podcast is in honor of my best buddy, Max.